helping people who really don't have a lot of resources made available to them, and they get a lot of bad information, and the result is just job churn.
Uh-huh.
That's not good for the employer or for the veteran, right? We want them to
Right.
make good choices the first time. That's where we need you. That's where we need all the career coaches out there. You know, help folks make a better decision, a more informed decision based on building some self-awareness about what they truly want and don't want, and help them find that dream job that they stay in. That's good for everybody.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Emily Grandinetta, a nationally recognized expert on military to civilian transition and veteran leadership development. She helps a veteran adapt and thrive in civilian workplaces and supports organizations in hiring, retaining, and developing military talent as a long-term business advantage. She's the author of 2 books on military transition and has advised organizations like Accenture, Comcast, Sodexo, and Blackstone on veteran integration and leadership. Her work has earned formal recognition from national leaders and military commanders for advancing veteran employment and development. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're here. And okay, before we get into what you do now, right? I'm curious how this all actually started. So, what was going on in your life when coaching became more than just an idea?
Well, actually, I was an organizational consultant and, business student, and I was given a coach. I was in a job. I didn't get along with my manager. I wanted to get promoted. It wasn't going to happen without her support. And so our boss's boss gave both of us a coach. And I was like, it's not my problem. I'm not, you know what I mean? And, but once I actually experienced the coaching, I was like, what? It was so transformational. And I realized that it wasn't all about her. I was in my own way in all kinds of ways that I wasn't consciously aware of. And that's the beauty of coaching, is it helps really smart people get out of their own way. That's how I describe it. So I had that coaching experience, and I thought, by the end of it, I thought, wow, if I could have this level of impact on another person, I want to do it. And my interest really shifted from kind of system level change to personal transformation. And I went and got my training at Georgetown University and my ICF accreditation. And that was about 25 years ago. And I got promoted.
I love the fact in your origin story, you're kind of forced to it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Okay. And at what point did it stop feeling like a side thing or a calling and start feeling like an actual business, you were responsible for?
Well, as soon as I got into the training program, I was all in, and I couldn't wait to quit my job. And I was so impatient, and I had to really I really had to pace myself and be realistic. And so the first thing I did, I had a big executive job in a big company. So the first thing I did was I did something nobody does at that time. And I reduced my employment status to half time. Well, it's 60%. Okay. And that was a huge salary cut, but I wanted to see if I could if I could do it on that half-time salary, which is something that my father taught me because he was an entrepreneur for his whole career, not his whole career, but most of his career. And he said, you always should have a part-time job so you can pay your bills, even if it's waiting tables, even if it's teaching Excel, whatever it is, but while you're pursuing your passion. And so that's what I did. And they thought I was crazy. They were like, I took myself off. partner track,
Mm.
all that stuff. You know what I mean? But I was that certain. And then I went about trying to start to build a practice to augment my income. And it took, it took a while. It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I love that leap of faith and that mentality, having a part-time job to enable your dreams or
Mhm.
aspirations. I like that. I love that. So once you were out there helping people, right? Who
Mhm.
did you naturally ended up attracting? When did you realize, yeah, this is my tribe?
It kind of coalesces with this whole military thing. I'm not a veteran, and that was so random. But before I became a coach, when I was an organizational consultant, I was tasked with figuring out why the veterans they hired were not thriving and they weren't making it. And so I did an organizational study, and that's how that whole thing started. And working one on one with the people who were struggling to make that transition from military service to civilian success.
Mm,
It was so motivating because, I really wanted to help them. They wanted the help, and the organization was funding the whole thing, so it was a really cool thing. So for my first probably 3 years out on my own after I finally left the part-time job and I was ready to just fly by myself, that company that I had been employed by, like, kept me full-time employed as a coach, as a 1099 coach and consultant. So I wasn't
mm,
just doing one-on-one coaching, I was doing a lot of, like, team building, team interventions with dysfunctional work teams, and there were a lot of things that I knew how to do because of my education in behavioral science and organizational development that, I was always
mhm,
trying to balance things so that I was doing more coaching than I was doing consulting. And that, again, that took time. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And so it took time for me to get to the point where I could say no to certain consulting gigs that I really didn't want to do anymore so that I could create more space and time to do the coaching that I loved. Does that make
mm.
sense?
No, it makes sense. What I'm thinking when spinning my wheels here is because we're talking about a woman who's not a veteran and she's joining this, I would say, kind of close community, right? Based on man and veteran.
Yeah.
Did you saw some friction there? How did that play out?
Thank you for being so perceptive, Pedro. You really kind of zeroed in on one of the things that has been hard for me is not having veteran status and not being a dude. Most military folks are, has really been an uphill climb, but I just so believed in what I was doing. And I went on to, I did, that first research project I did at the consulting firm that led to all this success with military transition. I later then validated all that research at Johns Hopkins University, where I was getting my master's. So I had developed this body of knowledge and work that nobody else had. But one of the things that I learned the hard way is that just because I was ready to bring all this value into the market was not ready. So it did not succeed. This was, 15 years ago, something like that. I had written my first book on the subject, and I saw such a huge need because once I had done those studies and I understood these are the things that veterans need that other new hires may not need in order to be successful, and this is what coaches need to know and understand in order to really truly help veterans make that transition. I saw that huge need, and at the time the market didn't. The market was really excited about hiring veterans and it didn't want to hear
Mhm,
about what was going to be hard about that and what was going to be difficult and what they should be thinking about. They were like, it was a very patriotic time around 2010, 2012. And so I was ready, but the market was not. And I had to finally acknowledge that and the resistance to a civilian trying
mhm,
to, you know, it just wasn't, a lot of things were not ready
mhm,
for me. I was ahead of my time for sure. And so I went back into 100% organization consulting and coaching.
mm.
So
Okay.
I ended up in another big consulting firm and had government clients and was coaching a lot. I got a lot of my hours towards ICF accreditation during
Mhm.
that period, which was wonderful because now ultimately I was able to get the master certified coach accreditation, which
Uh-huh.
is the highest level of professional coaching that there is, and it has served me very, very well. And
Okay.
now I'm kind of back and the market is ready and I have
Uh-huh.
this new book at ease. And so it's a totally different experience for me. I still have an uphill climb with some people because I'm not a veteran, and definitely not having that network because, as you said, it's kind of a closed community and they have a massive network and they trust each other and you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? They communicate about what's good, what's not good. And so not having that has been, I've had to overcome it. I had to overcome it.
Interesting. I'm just spinning my wheels thinking, what would it be of me if I was trying to do something similar to you? And I imagine the imposter syndrome. Like, am I worth it? Should I be doing this, or will they accept me? And we're not talking about skills, right? Because it's pretty obvious you do have them. You know, you can help people, but sometimes it puts you in a different perspective. And I like that you had that challenge. You know, because at the end of the day, sometimes coaching is about that, right?
For sure. For sure. And I think a lot of veterans have that imposter syndrome when they're coming into the civilian workplace. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they've done a lot in the military and now they're in this totally new world. I think the first time around, like 12 years ago, when I wrote the first book and I was out there really trying to make a business out of this, I did have that imposter syndrome. And that was really hard and difficult. And it was a total like head trip that I had to just constantly work on. This time, so then I left that whole stuff and just was doing executive coaching, leadership coaching, career development coaching, all that. And now, 12 years later, I have zero imposter syndrome. I know exactly what I'm bringing. I
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what the value is. And if people don't want it, or they don't want to hear it, or they disagree,
Mm-hmm.
bless them on their path. I just keep moving forward. So I don't, I think one of the things that I think for coaches, maybe for anybody who's an entrepreneur, is it is a mind game. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mental game to keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself grounded, to not get like yanked around. This is for me anyway. Maybe nobody else can relate to this, but you'll tell me if you can, to get yanked around by whatever I see happening on LinkedIn or whatever I
Yeah.
see happening that what are other coaches doing? And
Mm-hmm.
well, I know these coaches. We were in the same program together. It sounds like they're just like having an amazing, huge success, and it's like all of that is just, you cannot let that get in your head.
Yeah.
I really believe
I get it. I get it. And I talked with a coach. He said you cannot compare your insides to their outsides.
that's
That's what he
exactly right.
told me. Yeah. Okay. Let's
And
zoom
anyway,
out for.
that's the whole point of social media is to make yourself seem like, this huge. And so use it to the extent it helps you. And as soon as you notice all that comparing and just, you got to stop. At least I had
Mhm.
to really limit that.
Okay. Good that you've been through that and it's done. But let's zoom out for a second. Okay. If someone ends up working with you today, how do
Mhm.
they usually find their way to you in the first place?
Well, there are a lot of ways. One is one of the things I'm really proud of from this year 2025 was I developed a program for coaches who want to work or work more effectively with military connected people. Could be families, could be veterans. It's called the Certified Military Transition Coach Program. And what's really exciting about it is that it was accredited by the International Coach Federation and it was allotted a huge number of continuing education credits for anybody who
Mm,
takes it. So you get to, and then, you have that designation, CMTC. So coaches find me through that. There's a growing network of people who have achieved the certification and the credential and who are out there with something that completely differentiates them in the market from any other coach. And then I have a similar program for non-ICF certified coaches. So this is for all the career coaches or the business coaches, the people who maybe didn't go the ICF path, but
mhm,
they still want to differentiate themselves in this huge market of, especially, of people who really need their help. They take the course. So, for example, back in, I think it was June, I was invited to give not just a conference presentation, but a full kind of what they call a professional development institute program for the National Association of Career Development.
Oh.
And they were just like sponges because they realize this is a group that they get a lot of support from organizations who want to help them write their resume, but they don't get any support. Zero
Mm,
around how to figure out what they want to do next.
mm,
You know what I mean? In the
mhm,
military, you get your jobs based on a test that you take when you first get in when you're 18 years old, right?
mhm.
And it
Right.
sorts people into their careers. And maybe you had a couple of moves if you were in the service for a long time, but at the end of the day, all these organizations that are out there doing resume writing for veterans, all they're trying to do is translate what you did in the military into what possible civilian jobs there could be. And that is an important thing. However, it misses the point. There's that really exciting part of career development and career coaching around helping someone figure out, well, what is my passion and what is my
Mhm,
why and what are all the different ways that I could bring this into the market? That is wide open. And so
mm,
those programs are there. So that's how coaches find me. I do a lot of coaching of coaches. And then other people find me because I have a very, very active presence on LinkedIn. I have
mhm,
a weekly newsletter called the Veteran Success Blueprint. And it's free, of course. I have a group that I started again about 15 years ago on LinkedIn. I was the only group that tried to bring together military folks with civilian employers. Now there's tons of them on LinkedIn. But anyway, so mine has now 8,000 members because I've just been like nursing it along
mm,
all these years. But meanwhile, it's my coaching, it's my executive coaching, my leadership development coaching practice that is funding all of that. You see what I
okay.
mean? And so we're moving towards profitability with these much needed services for veterans, and getting those credentials is part of it. So I have also Society for Human Resource Management has accepted our programs for recertification credits. So we're
Mhm,
trying to bring a new level of professionalism to that practice.
okay.
But my day to day, paying my bills and funding all this program development that I'm doing in this niche is all straight up coaching.
Okay. Interesting. So let's talk about the mechanics behind the scenes for a moment, right? And you can pick the one you want to talk more about, right? So when someone decides to work with you, what does that actually look like from their perspective, either in the program for coaches or your personal coaching program?
What does it look like? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about in terms of structure? Is it one-on-one? Is it group coaching? Is it an online component? I want to understand what your
okay,
services would
I
look like
see.
for a. I'm just onboarding. I want to know,
Sure.
Emily, how does that work?
Okay. So I made a decision this time around when I decided 5 years ago already now I had another big executive job to leave all of that behind and go out on my own for the last time. I'm not going back in. I decided that I only wanted to work with organizations. I did not want to work with just anybody who found me online as a client because there's a whole rationale behind that. And so my business is primarily B2B. So I'm selling coaching and consulting into organizations. When they need a coach, they call me. Okay. Or when they need organizational development, they need a study or they need intervention or something like that, they call me because I've established myself in that, you know,
Hmm.
as a provider of choice in those service areas. The military stuff, however, same thing. I also sell mostly into businesses because businesses who hire veterans need to get return on that investment of hiring, and they don't. Typically, it's a revolving door. And so they contract with us to onboard their folks or to coach them one on one or in groups. So our onboarding for veterans has a group coaching component as well as an online learning component. All of the training programs that we do are 100% online. They're live. They're not just go listen to these recordings. It's important to me that students have the opportunity to have some interaction with the instructor. And so I build that into all the things that I do. That onboarding program is available to individuals through open enrollment. However,
Mhm.
primarily, a veteran would find themselves in the program because the company that they decided to join provides it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, perfectly. I mean, your work seems pretty involved, right? So how do you think about managing your time and energy so the business don't start owning you, for example?
I don't know. I haven't figured that out. Maybe I'll listen to some of your episodes and see if I can figure that out. My business totally owns me. This time of year, last week
I
of
love that.
December, every single year, the last week of December, I'm like, okay, how am I going to not be owned by the business? I'm going to adopt this mindset and that. But the fact is, I really, really, really love what I do. And it fascinates me. It's intellectually stimulating. It's personally very gratifying. It spiritually sustains me. You know what I mean? And so and a lot of coaches, I think, find that once they find coaching, they're like, I love this. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
going to retire. So, however, I do really need to work on that. And I always am working on that, particularly like with these things that we are working towards uh, profitability with. I have to be very careful with how much time, money, and energy I just pour into that.
Mm.
My commitment this year in 2026 is to, like, everything is out there, it's running, is to just allow it to just do what it's doing,
Mhm.
maintain my online presence, maintain all of that. But I didn't become a coach to be selling coaching constantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, your sweet spot is your sweet spot, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
It doesn't have to be, coming out from a guru that tells you shouldn't be do coaching or shouldn't be do X, Y, and Z. If
Hmm.
you're feeling comfortable, yeah. But let's just make sure we're not. I'm not saying this is your case, but we see a
Hmm.
lot of coaches. They're like control freaks, or they don't trust the process, or they don't trust the people. That's when we see friction, right? That's not really
Sure.
what we 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 see coaches like struggling with that. I'm not sure, and I'm not saying this is your case. I'm just putting out there, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I get it. I mean, those are the things that my coaching clients bring into the coaching
Hmm.
conversation is relational friction, getting in, like I said, kind of all the ways that we get in our own way without even realizing it. And it's usually things that people won't tell us because it's awkward. Like,
Hmm.
did you realize you interrupt constantly? And I'm starting to just like hate you now. A lot of time, but even, I mean, some people might tell you that, but other things, like the way that you show up in a conversation, like someone who doesn't make eye contact,
Mm.
people don't usually tell them because it's like awkward. You
Mhm.
don't tell someone that, but your
That's
coach, if you have a good rapport with your coach and the coach is confident and knows what they're doing, will tell you that in a way that you
mm.
can manage and you can use it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not, so those aren't things that I struggle with in my business, but I address those issues all the time in coaching.
Right. So, looking forward a bit, right? What's the direction you're aiming this business toward? Yeah, I know you're thinking more about growth. I mean, are
Mhm.
you thinking about more like growth, leverage, building a team, or
Mhm.
refining what already works? I mean, what feels most exciting right now? I'm not sure if we're talking about your personal coach practice or we're talking about the veteran stuff, right? So, which one and
Right.
what you're looking to do?
I mean, I want this to be really like consumable to your audience, which probably is not focused on the military stuff. So I'm happy to talk about either one of them. I think most of my excitement and energy is in that direction now because it's been a passion for all these decades and now it's actually like coming to fruition. So, yeah, my business focus is on monetizing that side of the business because I have a very strong coaching practice, a very thriving coaching practice. One of the things that I did this year that was super exciting was in terms of like planning for success, not hoping for success, but planning for
Mm,
success is I selected and I trained and certified a group of faculty. So I have 8 people now who have been completely trained by me. They have been heavily tested and vetted, and they'll continue
mhm,
working with me as they gain their experience, but they are ready to do what I do so that I can scale myself because that was really my goal this year was That's part of why I wrote the book. It's part of why I developed these courses is I can't be the only person doing what I do the way that I do it, because I can only help a little tiny group of people. So how do I scale that up? And all of these products and programs are kind of where I landed. And so I am now poised and ready to meet the massive tidal wave of business that's coming my way, and my faculty is super excited and ready. So I'd say that's what I'm doing. With I want to say offer one thing to your listeners, because this is a key decision I made. Remember, I mentioned that I decided I didn't want to have individual clients. I wanted to have organizational clients who funneled their employees into coaching with me.
Mm-hmm.
When I made that decision 5 years ago, this time around, I also made another decision, which may or may not relate to your folks, but your listeners. But I decided that I want to be a subcontractor. I do not want to be a prime contractor, because the business that I go after is big. When you're working on selling to corporate, you're getting big contracts. You know what I mean? It's not onesie twosie. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
we've got 50 people this year. You're our coach of choice. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's big volumes of work, and it takes a long time, and it's a very slow sales cycle. And there's a lot of competition, huge competition. Coaches are just like a dime a dozen, whether they're certified or not. You know what I mean? It's just a really, really massively flooded work career path, kind of. And so I didn't want to be just fighting that uphill battle constantly of finding new clients. And so I decided to build relationships with companies who were building those big contracts with companies. So I primarily am a subcontractor, and I love that. I just absolutely love it. A few years ago, I went off that plan, that strategy, because I was so excited about this opportunity. The city of
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, for the first time, was going to develop a leadership development training program for all of their managers and leaders. That's like thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people. And it was an open competition, and I partnered up with someone and we bid on it. And lo and behold, we won.
Mm.
And I was the prime. So I was the one directly working with the client. Of course, in the client, there was a million different clients. It was hugely complex. It was hugely technical. I don't want to do that again. It just confirmed for me that is not where I want to be spending my time, is managing a huge contract with a huge organization, because that's really where someone's got to spend their time doing that. I
Right.
would rather have someone else win that work and then let me come in and do the stuff that I love. I'll come in and do the coaching and the training and all of that stuff, but I don't have to deal with. So that's a personal, professional choice that I made, and I just thought I would offer it.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, even when things are going well, there's always something under construction. Like, what's the main thing you're actively working on or trying to improve in the business right now, Emily?
Oh, 100%. Selling the veteran onboarding program into organizations as they're onboarding, and selling the coach program into coaches, or the coach programs, I should say, because as I said, one is for ICF accredited coaches, the other one is not. So that's 100% like where I'm focused in terms of growth.
And I mean, you've been around long enough to see trends come and go, right? People give business advice nonstop, especially online. And we were talking about that on LinkedIn. But what's something you hear repeated a lot that you think people misunderstand or overvalue?
I mean, one of the things I love about coaching is, you don't have to have walked in someone's exact shoes in order to have a really big impact with them and help them. If you talked about trusting the process, trusting, if you have a solid foundation of coaching principles, and you have runtime, meaning you've got experience, you can trust that process, and you will be able to help people. What I found, the reason why I developed my own coach certification, is what I found is that coaching veterans is different than coaching anybody else. And coaching veterans who are going through this transition process out of service into civilian is extremely complicated. And even master certified coaches like me need specialized training in order to be effective there. And that is why I built that program. But why I built the other program for non-ICF coaches is because I recognize that there's so many other types of coaches, like career coaches. There's so many other types of people out there who are in a position to really make a difference for the companies who hire veterans and for the veterans who get hired, that I wanted something for them too, like all the HR folks in the world. That's why that SHRM accreditation was so important. I don't know if I hope I've answered your question, but that's where
No,
my
you did.
focus is.
Okay. And on the flip side, what's something boring or I would say not as hype that you wish more people actually paid attention to? Especially in the coaching practice, and owning a coaching business, or like you see a lot of people putting out there something that, they should be paying more attention to X, Y, and Z.
I mean, honestly, I believe that, of course, we all want to grow our practice and we want to have lots and lots and lots of clients, and maybe we want to do a multi-level thing, who knows what. But the fact is that coaching is a referral business. If you work with someone and they liked you and they got value and you cultivated that relationship, they will be the source of more business. They will refer you. That's how it works. Otherwise, you're just swimming in a sea of people who either are coaches or call themselves coaches. And so I know that at least for myself and for a lot of coaches that I know, when you're just getting started, you want volume. You're looking for, how do I get to as many people as possible? But the paradox there is that it's really one relationship at a time. And like in my case, I mean, yeah, I was ready to take on the world. I was sold on coaching. I was trained. I certified. I was ready to go, but it doesn't happen overnight. I think that people who tell a story, their origin story of entrepreneurship or self-employment, who say that it happened overnight, they are like, that's a moonshot, man. That is 1 in a million. That is not. And I don't say that to discourage people. I say that to tell you the truth, which is what I believe in doing. I want to tell the truth about that difficult life experience of military transition. I want to tell the truth about what my coachees are doing that's getting them in their own way. You know what I mean? And so I'm just telling your listeners, for me and for everyone I know, that has been the case. Building relationships. One of the cool things about coaching, which is really different and weird, and people outside of coaching don't really get it, is that it's a very collegial business. Most of my coaching work comes from other coaches who have been successful enough that they need to scale. They can't do it all themselves. I think coaches oftentimes are just naturally learners. They love to learn. So coaches are always learning and growing and developing, and that creates space. You know what I mean? So I've got one client now who gives me a lot of work, who her professional interests have shifted. She no longer wants to be working with certain clients. She doesn't want to be working with people climbing the ladder in a corporate environment. She doesn't want that anymore. So she gives me that work. I'm happy to do that. I love that. You know what I mean? And then there's certain work that I'm not going to want to do. So if someone approaches me, hey, will you coach me one-on-one? I'm like, that's not how I work. And I have an amazing person that I'm going to pass you off to. So at least in the professional coaching, the ICF world, that is a very standard process. I have a question for you. I mean, is your audience made up of ICF people, or that's the International Coach Federation, or is it mostly just entrepreneurs who want to help people?
Well, since you asked, yeah, our audience consists in basically career coaches, and they
Mhm.
could be certified or not. Okay.
Mhm.
Like you said, there are different ways to do it, and people looking for career coaches as well. So
Got
that's
it.
basically our audience. Does that
Got
answer your
it.
question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if there is anyone listening who is interested in differentiating themselves in a market that is emerging. I can't tell you it's a mature market yet, but we're doing every day working to mature this market. Reach out, let me know. Or if you have clients or you work for a big organization who hires veterans, please let me know. Let's bring this stuff into the places where it can truly have impact. Because it's not just about, for me, it's not just about building a business and a service line. It's about helping people who really don't have a lot of resources made available to them, and they get a lot of bad information, and the result is just job churn. That's not good for the employer or for the veteran, right? We want them to
Right.
make good choices the first time. That's where we need you. That's where we need all the career coaches out there. You know, help folks make a better decision, a more informed decision based on building some self-awareness about what they truly want and don't want, and help them find that dream job that they stay in. That's good for everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that before we close this out. If someone resonated with what you shared and wants to follow your work, Emily, where should they go?
They should go to military.grandinetta.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn. Emily King is how my name appears related to the military work. And that's where they can find the newsletter to subscribe to. I'm happy to also just talk about coaching in general. I mean, I feel very fortunate having worked in a lot of really big corporations and had big jobs in those big corporations and executive level, all that, and climbed that ladder. I'm so grateful that I found this thing that I love that really allows me to help people in a way that is also helpful to me, called coaching. It's just, I just love it. So I'm
Yeah,
always happy to talk to coaches.
I can tell it's a blessing for you. And there were a few moments from this conversation that really stood out to me. Okay. Well, first of all, how you were forced into coaching and how you challenged that. I love that. Okay. That's, I simply like it. Okay. And the way that you put it in a light way, I like it. And the leap of faith, for the half salary, half-time salary, part-time job that enable your dreams, taking that from your father. I really like that. And also not being a dude and not being a veteran and, being through that. I imagine the enormous imposter syndrome you face. So you've been there, you've done that, you have skin in the game, like we say, I really like that. And also the way you found yourself loving subcontracting, because I can tell hundreds of people would love to, get that big contract and manage that and have that big account. And you're like, you know what, this is not for me. And understanding that is such a key aspect,
Mhm.
and Emily, I really appreciate you taking the time and being open with this, the way you did. You were so authentic. It was great having you on.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It's just been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about what I love.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.